Hi guys, Russ here, and this is part 2 of my improvement of Italeri's house corner. And what do I got so far? I have this. Okay, there's the front side. So things are developing. I got some, it's not mold, don't freak out. It's just a squadron green putty. And I still use it for stippling and texturing. That's probably the only thing I use it for. Have you ever seen the tube? Kind of looks like this. Some people, it's like anything else in the hobby or anything with any hobbies. There's pros and cons of products and stuff. But I still use a green putty for a few things, and stippling for texture is one of them. How do I do that? Well, I had a filler video not too long ago. So if you go deep into my little suitcase of videos, you'll see my filler video. But yeah, I just take some green putty and I thinned it with a little bit of liquid cement, just this stuff, and I stir it with a stick, and I take a stiff brush and I just stippled it. And it came out pretty good, because what's going on is the glue is starting to dry, and so when you're pulling back, that stippling creates kind of like little peaks of putty. And then once that's nice and dry, you can take a real fine sandpaper. I used maybe 600 grit, I don't know. I start with a fine grit first, and if I need to go heavier, I begin going to a stronger grit. And I just kind of briefly just touch the tops of those little peaks, and they kind of flatten down, and so then you have all these little grooves. And it came out pretty good. I'm pretty impressed with it. It's not an easy thing to do. One of the things I realize is because you got a pre-existent material here, and then you're basically trying to do a copy right next to it. It's almost like an art class. I remember as a kid, we had to take pictures, cut it in half, tape it to a piece of paper, and then paint or draw the picture on the other side. So it's kind of the same concept. And I was really just concerned about the transition, going from the product to the styrene. And I didn't want to have any filler or seams or anything. So the stippling thing, just after I filled it with my gray putty, smoothed everything down, and I decided not to use the Dremel tool, and I just stippled it. Because that way, what I was able to do, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I can actually, when you're doing the transition, you kind of have to go over the line onto the red brick piece and kind of create sort of like this subtle nuance where you can't really tell the division of where it begins. I hope I didn't lose you all right there. I think I just lost myself. So anyway, yeah, the stonework looks good. I lost a little bit of my carving that I was going to do on this side, just the putty filled in, but I used my needle files. Some people don't particularly like these. I enjoyed using them, and they're great because I was able to put in a lot of little grooves, and if I want to put some more in, I could. So that worked out pretty well. Alright, so that's it with the eaves. I'm glad they're done. I think there's one place I forgot to hit it with some green stuff. I'll have to do that later. But that's it. Done. Awesome. Next is the floors, which are, so next, this is the big question, the big project. I created my vision of what the second floor, where it was going to be. I actually dropped it a little bit lower from my dotted lines. And what I did is I created my back wall. I kind of filled it in. And what I'm starting to do is I'm creating a bunch of laminated beams. So the first one in the series was just going to sit right in here like that, flush up again. So it's got plenty of material to glue onto and attach to. And I made this cross beam here where it'll sit on. My big issue though is weight. This stuff is starting to get kind of heavy, and the only place, there's no support beam I'm putting in. I'm just going to leave it hanging. So what I'm going to do is drop all my pieces in make sure I space them with a spacer blocks, and then I'm just going to slap on another piece on top, and hopefully that'll just hold it in place, and that'll be great. And because I'm concerned about weight, I am glad about using the strip styrene, strip wood, coffee stirrers, and that should work out okay. Yeah, and we'll see what happens. The first floor is a little bit different. I made my baseboard here. Just took some styrene, cut it out. Still gotta trim the edges here, but it's a nice strong surface. And I already cut out my little rafter beams. I'm just gonna put them out like this, 3 right across. And what I'm gonna do is I'll take my strips. I'm not sure if I'm using coffee stirrers or I'm just going to go buy some styrene, and I'm just going to lay them vertically or perpendicular to my beams, kind of like that, all the way across. And then I'll probably put on some floor molding to hide the edges, and that'll be done. So this is my dilemma. The dilemma is wood versus styrene. Even before I started making the video, I was concerned about it because they're two mediums in the hobby. What I like about it is that when you can, this is wood, so I don't have to replicate wood. I'm actually using wood. So like when I snap it on the edges where it's been like damaged, all that fiber and stuff and splints is going to look really natural because it's doing what it does. With the styrene, I'm going to have to go back to, smashing it up, taking my knife, cutting it up. Then I'm going to have to make the wood grain, which I enjoy doing it. I like my technique and doing all that stuff. So I don't know. It's a matter of taste. No right or wrong. I could easily just bought some balsa pieces and stuck it in, which probably would have been, I think, maybe better, because again, I'm not going to have to worry about weight issues, especially if if I were to put like a little guy observing or doing something, because all that added weight could make it collapse, and we don't want that. Yeah, so, and then this part though, I was talking with Co and C. One of the problems with wood though is that this is pine, and it absorbs liquid, glue especially. I used to, when I worked construction, that would happen a lot, using adhesives. It would just wick it right up, and you had to like just saturate it with wood. And once that saturation was complete, then you had some glue to work with. I'm probably thinking it's the same thing with this. I don't know if I could just lacquer, just lamb-baste it with lacquer, brush it on, let it cure. And then from that I can glue it, make a nice attachment. I don't know. I think at the end of the whole project, Cohen was mentioning just putting a whole lacquer coat on the wood, and I think that's a great idea, and I'll go with that. Secondly, there's another problem with this, is that, I don't know if I have an example here, but the wood, yeah, look at this puppy, warps, and that's what I'm trying to prevent, because once the model's done, that's awesome. What happens with environmental issues with your model, I could easily have all this stuff warping and totally ruining my potential diorama. That's a bummer, but unfortunately it's the caution that every modeler has to deal with. I go to all these model building shows, and constantly I see guys pulling their models out of cars and they break. One fella I talked to, he had a completely all resin aircraft, and he took it to Atlanta, Georgia, and it's very warm down in the south, and it all buckled and so that's a real bummer. But these things happen, and we just have to do the best we can with preventative model building skills, which hey, we're all beginners there. It's really just experience, and we'll see what happens. It's all part of the adventure. Alright, so I talked about that. Yeah, so the last part of my little chapter here, I just want to talk about scratch building, I talked about scrounging in the first video, part 1. I also want to talk about, this kind of transcends or goes beyond scratch building, I think. Any creative person, model builder or writer or whoever you are, you gotta have vision, looking to the future. I think what I do is I keep a little journal of my model building world. I write my questions, my thoughts, my successes, my failures, my hopes, my diorama ideas, and they're all in here. You don't have to use a book. Some of my friends use their iPhones, whatever, because all of a sudden you'd be driving, I got an idea, ooh, I'm at work, ooh, I got an idea, and you put them all in there. So it's kind of cool, and it's kind of interesting. It's actually kind of like a model builder's story. So I don't know, someday somebody may find this when I'm a very old man and go, wow, cool stuff. But yeah, it's a great tool, because again, sometimes these things are just like flashes in our minds, and poof, they're gone, and then you're like, oh, I wish I could remember that idea, and so just write it down. And that's kind of like what's been going on here, because I went for a walk yesterday, and I've been kind of thinking about, what do I want to do with this when it's done? Obviously it's a diorama, but what am I going to do? What am I going to call it? Because with dioramas I like creating stories, and so yeah, I came up with the idea of maybe putting an anti-tank gun in here, and maybe the crew is bore sighting their barrel. And you might be asking, what is bore sighting? Anybody is an advanced squad leader person would instantly know what I'm talking about. So bore sightings is when they took the actual breech, opened up their barrel, and they went from the breech all the way through to the end of the muzzle, and they had a direct vision, line of sight, of where that piece of shell was going to go. And so it's pretty accurate. For any of those advanced squad leader people out there, that would give you a -2 dice roll modifier, I believe. Awesome. Anyway, yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. Bore sighted with a view will be the title of it. That'd be kind of cool. Alright. Yeah, so write it down, your ideas. And secondly, what should I add? I wanted to say, you're probably going, good God, Russ, you're building this thing, and like, I can't do that. I mean, this is too crazy. And no, don't think like that. That's the dark side talking. You gotta try it. Give it a whack. Whether it's a tank or a car or a boat or something, you're trying to scratch build something, just do it. Like the Nike commercial. None of the stuff I did, some of my first scratch builds were just, it's like anything else. It's like, when you're little kids, you slap your artwork, schoolwork on the refrigerator. Mommy, look at what I did. And it's all this like goofy crayon craziness outside the lines. But I still have my old crayon outside the line pictures, and it's kind of like where it all started. We were all beginners, and so I say, continue building, because the next ones are going to be better and better and better. And I think that's life with whatever you do. The more practice you put into your craft or job or work or whatever, you're going to get better. The results will improve. Because if you have the passion, you enjoy the hobby, that drive is going to take you places that you've never thought you could reach. I mean, I never thought I could do stuff like this, and here I am doing it and sharing it with all of you. So, alright, next I'm going to put in these floors, and we're going to go on from that. And there it is. Be like Russ the Builder. Hi guys, Russ Gosselin here, and we're back working on my ruined house from Italeri, my scratch building improvements. So I just want to kind of show you where I'm at. Here we are. Alright, here's the second floor, first floor. Do a little turnaround. Alright, so quite a few things have been done here. Let's start with the floor beams. Where's my pointer? Ah, here it is. So here's my beams that I used. And what I did is I laminated two of my things here, and I glued them together. And at first I was thinking maybe throw in some putty to fill the seams, but then I realized, you know, I'm just going to be carving wood grain. It's not going to matter. So just glued it together, clamped it, and let it dry overnight. And what did I do is I took my sanding disc on my Dremel. It's used for sanding, but it makes a nice cutter for small styrene pieces. And what I did was I just kind of made points at different angles. And I don't know if you can be able to see it, but they're all made nice little tips. And looks like there's about 3 or 4 angled pieces all the way around. That came out okay. What I'll probably do is have a few photos, some stills of some close-ups I took. That way you can kind of get a better view of it. And then once I cut those tips off, you know, I just used my X-Acto blade and I scribed in all the grooves and grains. So I'll just say, be safe. I mean, I don't know who watches my channel. I mean, I might have some young people, so if you're new at this kind of working with X-Acto blades, be safe. Wear safety glasses, and don't cut towards yourself. Especially with this kind of work, you want a very sharp blade, and start slowly. You know, make 3 or 4 parallel lines, and then go a little deeper, and then usually towards the end I'm just kind of like using a lot of rapid grooving movements, and I put in as many cuts as possible. There's never a shortage of it, because what happens is when you gloss coat it, all that gloss coat's going to seep inside there, and then when you use your wash to wash it, it works just like a stain. It just goes into all those nooks and crannies, and it comes out really well for a wood grained look. Alright, so those are the beams. I try to make some sort of what I'm making is here some sort of edging so that I can attach my floor molding at the end. What happened was I didn't measure properly, and it's actually going to be too low. But the idea is it's going to be like that. And that's just going to cover up the ends of the my coffee stirrers, just like real floor molding in your own house. If you know, well, at least the older houses still have them. That's going to look out pretty good. And I just installed the bases here. I'll just put them in at the end. So that came out pretty good. Alright. Also with the beams, when you see the actual photos, not only towards the end when I was doing all my cuts, I started doing a crisscross action with my blade, and what that did is it kind of chipped out some of the styrene, and it really gives it kind of like that fibery texture that you would see with wood, and it's very rough, and I think that just comes out really good. I'm pretty excited about it, and I did all the sides. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but all 4 sides. The only place where I didn't do it is where I knew the floorboards are going to be glued. I didn't bother with that. I just left just a little bit of the top where that would be exposed. Because what happens is when you're scribing like that, you get a lot of just the surface is uneven, and I wanted an even flat surface when I glued my floorboards down. Okay. Secondly, now I'm using the coffee stirrers. That was a little tricky. If you noticed, each board is an individual length. So what I did is I laid out my pieces and I kind of visualized how it's going to go, because you see how it kind of curves a little bit here. And I dry fitted each piece in. And then once I did that, I numbered each board. and you can only see one number. I think number 8. Number 8's right here, and it's right there. You can see the number. I drew the numbers right where it was going to be glued into the beam, so you can't really see them. But that's really important, especially when you're doing irregular pieces like this. That way, when I came to glue, it was just rapid succession. Bang, 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 done. And it worked out really well. And all these little breakings of the sticks, what I did was, here they are. It's, if you just snap it in half, you get a little bit of a crumble, but it doesn't have much of an effect. So what I did is, instead of just snapping it in half, I kind of twisted it like this, and you get a much better break. And it really looks a lot rougher. Looks like it's got some heavy damage. And don't worry about if it bends too much. You can always just straighten it out a little bit. But it definitely has a lot more fiber. Really, you know, it's wood. It's doing what it's supposed to do. So that came out pretty good. And that's how I accomplished that task. Super glue. I use super glue when I attach these pieces to the styrene. I used this stuff's called El Teco super glue. I get it at my local hobby shop. You know, sometimes there's all kinds of different merchants peddling different things. So this stuff, it's a lot stronger than the regular school super glue stuff. I find that it really doesn't glue to wood very well. Even when it says it does bond to glue, it really doesn't. It just doesn't work. So this super duper stuff, I used it on a few other pieces, and this stuff's like concrete. It just bonded instantly. Which is also another thing, is that when you put them in, again, super glue is it's like working with photo etch and gluing pieces in. Once it's on, it's on. You can't play with it. There's no wiggle movement. So think about it first, then do it, and work fast. And got it on. So it worked out pretty good. These suckers were on tight, and we'll see what happens when the environment happens. Maybe a year from now they'll be popping off. I don't know, but I'm gonna really saturate this with a clear coat to kind of just make it as airtight as possible. Alright, that's the second floor, and that all came out pretty well. The only thing left to do on the second floor is I'm going to take these other coffee sticks that I got from school, and I still want to create the top layer, and they're going to kind of go down like that. And again, I'm going to break the edging, so the edging's going to follow along, and I think that's just going to add a little bit more depth to that. And then I'll just have to reattach my floor molding, and that part will be done. Cool. What I'll do, instead of using super glue, I'm just going to use regular wood glue, because at this point I'm just gluing wood to wood, not wood to plastic. So wood glue should just be fine. Alright. The first floor was crazy. I left 2 planks out, and there's a reason why I did that. Ran into a few situations. How did I cut my boards? Well, I just use a razor saw. Again, we're not building a cathedral, so don't have to have straight lines. Just mark my lines, and I just cut it. And then, because you're working with wood, you know, use some sandpaper, or I use files, and just kind of smooth out the cuts, so you don't got too much. They're almost like little fibers sticking out, because what that does is it offsets your measurement. So you want to trim all that, sand it down so it's smooth. I super glued all these in place, and what I did was, I don't know if anybody out there has done a lot of home work, not school work, but home building. But you know, if you ever lay tiles in a bathroom or something, you always start with the center point first, and you work your way towards the wall. So I did the same thing here. As I started I started with the doorway first, kind of like right on my first edge, because I have a nice straight edge that I can work with. The wall here, I haven't put in my edging, so I couldn't work again with it. And what I've noticed is that the Italeri building piece itself, it's not a 90-degree angle. Everything's kind of cockeyed. So I started here at the threshold first, and I worked my way out. And what I'll do is these last two pieces, I'll just bring them in, and what's going to happen is that edging is going to get covered up anyway, so if there's any blemishes, they'll be camouflaged. Again, I use this super glue, and when you're doing this, you gotta be that first piece that goes down, it's gotta be straight, because if it's not, and if you're not watching, every successive board is going to be cockeyed. And there were two places where it was starting to go off a little bit. So what I did is the next piece, what I did is I just kind of gave it a little hairline angle, just a little bit, and then I glued another one, and then another one had another angle, just to kind of keep it straight, and it's kind of staggered at an irregular thing. So actually I think it adds more to the floor. If they're all just straight, it'd be maybe just a little too symmetrical. I don't know if anyone's worked on old buildings, but nothing straight at all. So it came out pretty good. And you might be saying, gee Russ, all this edging is kind of rough. You're right, it is. I'm not really too concerned about it. There might be a few pieces I may just cut off. But you got to remember is that this is going to go into a diorama piece at some point in the future. So it's going to get dropped right in, and there's going to be debris and stuff. So I only kept it straight here because this is whatever model piece, you know, I'm probably going to use an anti-tank gun, maybe a mortar team going out, firing out this way would be kind of cool. But this area is where the model piece will be, and everything around it is going to be debris and rubble. And this is going to get set probably into some kind of clay material anyway. So this is going to come over and cover the edges, and then there'll be dust and dirt and ammunition or whatever. So that's all going to fill in nicely. So don't be too concerned about edging like that. That's just practicality, you know. Alright. Hope you're still with me. Okie dokie. Yeah, clear coated. Yeah. So, wrapping up, this will be probably the end of part 2. Part 3 is going to be the wall section. I'm sure you guys have been wondering how I'm going to accomplish this. Yeah, I'm just going to fill it with some sort of clay or epoxy. I haven't quite figured out which one I'm going to use. I'm going to talk to a few people I know that build a lot of dioramas, and they use a lot of different clays. But what I want to do is kind of fill all this wall space in, and I want to recreate some of the you can see where the plaster has been chipped off, and then you can see the brick. So I want to use a clay or an epoxy that as it's setting, I can scribe in and draw in that plaster and brick work on the inside. And once that's done, it'll be done as far as the scratch building part, and from there I can make it into a diorama. I don't know when I'll make a video for that. I think maybe spring of 2014. Like a lot of us, we're all very busy with other builds and stuff, so I got commitments like all of us. So yeah, but I like to finish this off and make it into a diorama piece. So then lastly, I just got, yeah, this will be my edging here. I still got something like this, but it'll just cover up all that edging, and that's gonna look really sharp. It's a funny thing when you scratch building and stuff is you don't want to get too lost in detail. I always say the more detail your model or thing is, it is better. But you don't want to lose your audience. Sometimes it works out in modeling competition because you got so much detail that sometimes judges don't see everything. But yeah. So, but also it works the opposite way. You know, I mean, you can get so bogged down in detail that you never finish the kit. So this is kind of like a happy medium where you want detail, but also you don't want too much that becomes counterproductive. So, yeah, because there were a few things I was like really worrying about, and then I realized, you know, it's not a big deal. I mean, kind of losing the main focus there. So, alright, so this is it for part 2. I hope you've enjoyed it, learned a few things, and again, keep on trying scratch building out. I know this is just a building, and it's a pretty basic concept. Everything's very linear and straight. I think my other scratch building videos for next year, I want to give kind of a fair and even show of the different types of mediums and different situations that come up. So work on this building, and most likely the next one will be probably a model kit of some kind, and I want to work with lead foil and metal as well as styrene, and I probably work on circular things, working with a compass cutter, and how that works. Alright, well, I don't want to keep on talking too much because that's just crazy talk. No, talking's good, but I don't like talking too long. I get overwhelmed when I have long videos. I know some of you out there like the longer videos, but I get lost, and then I get crazy and don't really like talking in front of the camera, and I just gotta wrap it up. Alright, so take care, model on, and I'll see you again sometime soon. Alright, bye.